We are really cozy. It is really comfortable in here in the new set. What's happening, Nerd Herd, and welcome to the show that is going to be replacing the podcast that we used to do on this channel with a brand new live action, in camera, conversation style show where Ange and I discuss things from our childhood and all the nostalgic parts that we miss and have gone away, but through conversation we will relive. And it is the show called Do You Remember? So
Do you remember?
that's literally why I called it this. I was thinking about it. And I was like, what should I call? I mean, like, it's gonna be a show where we just talk and reminisce about stuff like that, and it's the premise. That is the premise. It's just, do you remember? And
Yeah.
then, so
Makes sense.
but it's the song is what inspired it for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Earth, Wind, and Fire.
yeah, great song by the way. All right. So the first episode. So here, I wanted to bring this up to you because I feel like we were talking about it recently.
Oh no.
And no, it's I don't know. It's an interesting topic because I feel like everyone has an opinion about it, and it's fast food restaurants. So over the years, we've seen a significant change in the marketing, the design, the style, like the food choices, like everything that has to do with our fast food restaurants has changed a lot. And I feel like when we were kids, everything was like slides and colorful, and big cartoon characters were promoting the food, and the commercials were really creative. And nowadays, like, if you see a McDonald's commercial, it's for a new like toy.
Right.
Like, it's, hey, Disney's Raya is coming out, or Soul, or Star Wars, whatever, and we got toys, and that's it. But like, I remember when they used to have those commercials with Ronald, and like he was like the star of the show, and he had his whole gang of friends. Now recently they kind of brought that back, and that's why I wanted to touch on this with nostalgia, because I feel like the whole Grimace birthday thing was, yes, in a way trying to introduce today's generation to the old guard of the McDonald's crew, but they're using it in like meme culture. The shake, how it like messes with your head, and it's like a scary thing and stuff like that. But
McDonald's isn't sponsoring that.
McDonald's is not, but that's how they're choosing to use.
Who's they?
The younger generation. Like, that's how they're
Got it.
affected by it. We, on the other hand, and I feel like people that are older than us as well, see it, and it's like, oh my god, they brought Grimace back. They brought back what?
I kind of disagree, because if like that video that we watched, for example, of like the evil Grimace shake, like that was done by people who were easily in their 30s and 40s. Like, that wasn't kids.
Well, I feel like most of the people doing it
I don't think it's
are not
Gen Z,
kids, but
what
they're
I'm
not
saying.
like, they're not in their like 20s, I don't think. And those who are doing it that are in their 30s and 40s, I mean, it's like few and far between, and those are like the higher quality videos. It's like trying to jump on the trend. But I don't know, I just feel like that's not what McDonald's wants us to think about it.
You know what? I actually feel like the opposite is true.
Really?
Because I think that people who lived through like the 90s, I didn't live through the 80s, but maybe the 80s, the 90s, like, you have a specific view from your childhood of it, but it's not always idealized. And I think a lot of like millennials who did grow up in the 80s and 90s were starting to see like, that's coming back, really? Like, because we thought of it as being like dorky or like old-fashioned looking, like there's so many things where like we've been quicker to embrace like trends and technology and moving forward. And I think that like Gen Z has been captivated by trends of the past in the same way that we were with some of the things that came back, like the like the mid 2000s, like the 80s style pants and hairstyles and stuff, like all that came back in style, and we were like, yeah, awesome. And like before that, like there was like kind of like a 60s revival going on. So I think like obviously trends are cyclical, but I think Gen Z's been kind of embracing the nostalgia that they never had.
Mm,
Like they didn't have nostalgia for like 80s and 90s culture, but they're still embracing it and being like, look at this, guys, it's so cool. Like what happened with Stranger Things
true.
and with Kate Bush and with them, taking something that wasn't ever a part of their childhood and discovering it for the first time for themselves and then making it absolutely insanely huge. Whereas like I feel like people in their 30s and 40s or late 20s like we are, like they can kind of see those trends from childhood and be like, it's coming back, like really, okay, and then kind of like taking a crack at it with like memes or with like just making jokes with your friends or like getting it and being like, yeah, I got it, but like kind of like ironically, you know what I mean? Like where I feel like Gen Z is just so authentic with like the put, and like maybe the generation after that even is like so authentic with that push toward embracing things they don't really know a whole lot about that they just think are like so cool because it's like, oh, I wasn't there, but I want to know more about it, and like how nice that I get to see these things now.
Yes.
So I kind of see it the opposite of that, if I'm being totally honest. And I don't know that I can paint everybody with a broad brush, but just in terms of the trends I'm seeing, that's what I'm feeling more of.
That's a good point because I wasn't really thinking about it like that. Because well, also I think you're right that they kind of took it and ran with it in a new way. But it's McDonald is big McDonald's is benefiting from it.
McDonald.
McDonald, McDonald, the McDonald, old McDonald himself is benefiting from the reaction that everyone is having to it.
Sure, yeah.
I think like even if you're making fun of it or if you're just like, oh wow, this is so cool, everyone is getting the shake. Everyone is celebrating Grimace.
Yeah,
Everyone is talking about
Sure.
the character. I kind of want the shake. And I know I'm kind of late on the trend, although it's just like vanilla with purple food dye.
Is it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
One of my friends at work got it, and that's what he said.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I feel like they need to do stuff like this every now and again because with the way they're headed now, it's so boring. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to be rude.
I mean, they still have like Happy Meals and stuff. Like,
true, no, they do because they know that works.
Exciting. Like for a kid, yeah, it was fun. Like when you think of like the playgrounds that they used to have and like the spinny shaped chairs.
Think
and,
about
like,
how McDonald's
they used to have like birthday
look.
parties, but also it was kind of a different time because we hadn't gotten to the point where we were like, as a culture, like fast food is slowly killing us.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think that there was a turning point after that where we realized like, oh, like Pizza Hut and Burger King and McDonald's and Wendy's and all that stuff, like yeah, it's like nice once in a while, but if you live off of it or like make it a big part of your life and your culture, like you're gonna end up obese and unhealthy, like it's gonna kill you. So I think that we kind of moved away from that, and like we don't do like kids birthday parties at McDonald's anymore, and they took away a lot of the things that made it seem more fun. I think maybe as a response to the cultural reaction they were receiving from us as a country at that point in time, because if you think about it, it kind of coincides with when they did their marketing push towards being more of like a regular restaurant. They started pushing out healthier options, tried to like incorporating fruit and milk and
salads,
juice and like things that weren't just like soda and fried food. And I think that they really tried with that for a while, and then eventually they just started pulling back on those elements that were bringing kids in because they didn't want to feel like they were specifically marketing toward children when they knew they were creating a product that people already viewed as extremely unhealthy.
Wow, so you think that this is a means of turning people away from...
Not turning away, but to realize like what it is and to not have that false impression of like it's good for you. Like I think it's become more of an indulgence, and I think people are more aware of what they're consuming now. I don't think it's an experience so much as it is just like a moment in your day, which is probably what it should be if you're going to consume fast food. And I think it has a place in everyone's life. It's nice once in a while if you want to enjoy a burger or some fries or something. But I think that when it was like a place to go hang out and just eat a bunch of chicken nuggets, like bring your kids out on the playground and play for a few hours while you just eat and eat and eat. Like I think it was, I don't know, to me, I don't know that. Like I'm not basing it off of facts. I'm basing it off of like my impressions of how their branding changed based on the cultural reaction. because I noticed that a lot, especially after like Super Size Me came out and they started,
Yeah.
and even that's even controversial because that they kind of made up some things within that. It's not totally an accurate depiction, but I think that that was when people started to take note of what was going on and to see like the types of marketing that these fast food restaurants were doing specifically to kids was harmful. And I wonder if maybe even that was something that got pushed out in terms of like legislature around that time. Like maybe there were more rules around how you can market toward kids. I don't know about that. That's just, it's a possibility because it seems like it happened kind of across the board.
Okay, well, that's a good point. So what you're saying is, okay, so this isn't a way of them turning people away, but they're trying to make it less enticing almost,
Not
because
even less enticing.
well,
Just
because
kind of
if
like for you to see it for what it is, and not as like a big shiny like place to hang out, but a place to get food. A place to enjoy a meal and then maybe move on instead of like let's hang out and have birthday parties at the McDonald's and have all the kids eating chicken nuggets and fries. They're probably still going to eat it anyway, but I don't know. I think maybe it was just a cultural turning point. Maybe it became less popular. I think those things are harder to upkeep too if you need to make sure you keep, not that they ever kept them clean, but you know what I mean, like make sure they're safe and clean. And they probably started to fall into disrepair at a certain point. Like it'd been like 20 years and needed to get rid of some of that stuff.
That was another thing about those playground areas, especially at McDonald's, is that they were not kept in the best conditions. So that would that definitely add to the reason why they would have them closed down and taken down and thrown away and everything. But I just okay, well, because I never really thought of those attachments and marketing techniques as like this. We're trying to show kids that it's cool to come here and it's okay to eat our food and it's good for you, so much as it is like we are it's like a playground with fast food. Like come here, eat our crazy food and then burn off all that energy and then go home, because like they still do have Happy Meal toys, and they still make commercials for those toys.
Well, like Chick-fil-A,
which is what I mean. Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network, like you'll see those at Disney. You'll see those ads, and then if you're a kid, you're gonna want to go there and get it.
Well, Chick-fil-A still has like playgrounds too, don't they?
They do. Like they have them inside the restaurants,
or past them at least, and seen those in there. So
they have like kind of like jungle gyms and like activity centers. No, I mean I don't think they really have like the whole tube network that McDonald's used to have, which is a good thing. Because people were getting hurt in those, and my God, you spend a 15 minutes in that. The amount of static electricity that you built up, anyone you touch, you just.
I mean, I wonder if that was part of it too, like insurance wise.
Yeah.
Like it's probably much more expensive to have like a giant playground, because I know even if you have like home insurance, if you say you put playground equipment up or you have a pool or something, like your insurance policy goes way up.
Yeah.
So maybe that's like part of it too. Like maybe they got to that point where it was like, okay, we either revamp the whole thing or we just tear it down and make it into something else. And they just decided, let's tear it down and make it into something else. And then at the same time, they were doing that redesign because that like 90s style of super bright colors and like patterns and stuff was really going out fast. So they were like, let's modernize it a little bit and we'll cut out the gimmicks. It's McDonald's, but it's like fresher. You know what I mean? Like they kept like
they tried to make it like, hip and modern.
Yeah, it was new, it was hip, it was modern, and I feel like that was maybe what their push was, like away from like we're the place for kids to hang out to like we're the place for you to go enjoy Angus beef burger. Like they had like 100% beef on there, like on all the advertisements. Remember that in like the mid 2000s when they kept advertising like on like the tabloids and stuff about like the coupons and all that stuff. So I don't know. I think maybe that was just the end of it. Pizza Hut kind of did the same thing where they stopped giving away those little pizza coupons for the readers, and they used to have the cool stuff for kids when you went in there. And I think that they redesigned everything, and I haven't been there in a long time, but from what I understand, they no longer have those little perks for kids. And I think that that's maybe it's all part of the same push.
I haven't even seen a Pizza Hut
inside.
Like years. Like I haven't seen one in years.
Probably about 20 years for me, at least.
I wonder how many are left.
There's one not far from us.
Really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We should check it out for research. Um, I do miss that pizza pie that had like the hot apple cinnamon pie, the dessert pie.
I don't think I ever had
Oh, God, it was so good. They kind of did the same thing at Chuck E. Cheese too, but it was just okay. Like it wasn't as great. Um, okay, so you mentioned that the bright colors and the funky designs of the buildings, like all of that was kind of going by the wayside.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think we're at a point now, like what you said about the fashion and stuff like that earlier, where it's starting to come back around again? And do you think restaurants and like food chains and stuff like that are slowly going to start incorporating an appropriate amount of color and pop and like not funkiness but uniqueness to their buildings? Because like we noticed that they're doing that with Taco Bell, and I feel like I know what Taco Bell has, I know what they offer, I know what their food's like, but if you were to put a Taco Bell next to a Chipotle and be like, which one are you gonna go to? I just, based on level of, welcoming, inviting nature,
I know where you're gonna go.
energy,
I'm gonna disagree.
is Taco Bell.
Yeah.
And now, once you get inside, the food is up for grabs on both places. Yes,
No.
yes, but Chipotle, I've seen 3 Chipotles, and each one looks the same. It's like this flat, squared off, very modern style building. A lot of grays, a lot of browns, dark colors, except for their logo, which is has like the little red pepper.
Riding Hood.
Little Red Riding Hood?
Sorry, keep going.
In it, and that's it. And like, I feel like even though their food's not great, like Taco Bell kind of is doing something new by bringing back something old. Like they're trying to recapture that magic a little bit again.
Well, it's very. I mean, Chipotle inside is still very like hipstery. They have like a lot of wood finishes. They have like the metal chairs.
But that's been a thing for like since the early 2000s.
It's still. I think that aspect is still on trend because you still see restaurants that are opening now that use like the metal stools and kind of the wood finishes, and inside I don't think it looks outdated. And I just know like the food quality is so different. Like they're cooking fresh ingredients and you can actually see them like making it on the grill. And I think that compared to Taco Bell where they're opening up a can or just pouring something in from the freezer, like I've heard stories about from people who worked at Taco Bell about the ingredients and about what's really in it, and it's a no for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's a no.
It's a no.
Gross.
Yeah.
But Chipotle, at least I can see what it is. Like, I'm not looking at it like, I wonder what's in that. Like, is that meat or is it something else?
Yeah, they're like the Subway of your Tex-Mex American style food.
That's an insult. They're very open and honest about what's going on in there. But, so I must disagree because as much as I don't think Chipotle is the best Mexican restaurant I've ever been in, I do think they're a lot better than Taco Bell. I do think they're a lot healthier than Taco Bell. I would choose Chipotle over Taco Bell pretty much any time. But to speak to your original point, like, I don't actually know if all of those restaurants will redesign. I think that maybe that industrial look might be going out of style, but they just redid those buildings not so long ago. Like, all the McDonald's around here got that industrial look. I don't know, maybe 10 years ago?
Yeah.
Whether they're going to do a complete revamp now is questionable. It's not as fun. Like, I definitely enjoy colors. I always have. I never got into that, like, kind of modern, like, hard, tough look. I know that, like, neutrals are very popular for, like, home decor now. We're not neutral people, our whole house is so colorful. And I think, like, trends come and go, but it's all about what you like. And I don't know that they're gonna keep changing their decor over and over again according to like the trends that come up every decade. I think if there's a major push in how different like decor becomes in the way that it did from like the 90s through to the early 2000s, that was a pretty drastic difference.
Yeah.
If you think about like all like the jazzy styles
from
the 90s, and
especially
then you think about
Taco Bell was crazy with that.
Absolutely. And then the darker colors that arose in like the 80s and 90s too, that grungier look from like Wendy's and Pizza Hut, I think that those styles just went by the wayside so fast. Like it just, like you wake up and like it's totally different. I think that necessitated a change because it looked outdated so fast.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that we've really changed our decor sense so much since they last did it that that's gonna make or break their design. Like I think Taco Bell maybe just wants to rebrand themselves and they do that pretty often, like we talked about. Like McDonald's doesn't really do that. They had kind of the same look for a very long time and it took them a while to change it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's gonna take them a while to change it again. I don't know if Chipotle ever will because maybe that's gonna become their thing. It's like those square buildings, oh, well, that's a Chipotle. In the same way that like we knew what a Wawa looked like in the 90s, those stone buildings. Like even now when you go past one of those, you can be like, that was a Wawa.
Yeah.
And they're all super Wawas now, so they're like crazy big buildings with gas stations and all that. But all the old ones that you pass when you're like on the pike or something, you can always see like that definitely was a Wawa.
That's crazy.
It becomes so iconic.
You see like an insurance building or something like that, and you're like, that was a Wawa before.
Yeah, because they all had the same design, and I think that's very intentional from these companies to be like, oh, well, we know that people can recognize this building type.
Yeah.
And that might be shooting some of them in the foot now, because if you think about it, like Wawa's got all sorts of things that used to be, it used to be a Wawa, but now there's all sorts of things in this building. So maybe they're also driving past and thinking like, I hope nobody's making that association now. But because it's so tough to change that building once it's there, unless you rip it down. But I don't know. I think maybe that architecture style is supposed to cement in people's minds, like that's what that building is. So if you see it on the side of the road, like, oh, there's a Chipotle nearby. We can drive in and we can get something.
Do you think now? Slight tangent.
Okay.
Do you think? Because you brought up Wawa, and it kind of made me think about this, like those gas stations that are like the super stations that have, the food that you can get. It's like a whole like mini mart or whatever. But I feel like that's in a separate class to the fast food,
Okay.
But I feel like
I wasn't necessarily including that. I was just as an example of like,
No, I know you.
A building that's
I know.
Iconic.
But you made me think of that, so now I'm kind of pivoting a little bit. It's in a separate class, but I feel like they have remained more consistent than the fast food chains.
In what way?
Well, in what they serve, the way they serve it, and the styling of the buildings and like decor once you enter. Like, I feel like Wawa, like, even though some of their products maybe have cycled through, or new technologies came in, and now there's like the self checkout, and you can pick out, make your own food and stuff like that. All in all, like every time I've walked into a Wawa from when I was old enough to go out and go on my own to now as an adult, I've never once stopped and been like, oh my God, it's different in here. Like, why is it so different?
Mm-hmm.
The smell's the same. The feel, you get hit with that blast of AC and you smell the Slurpee immediately and the coffee. And even the way it's laid out is almost similar in any Wawa. Like, depending on the size and the shape of the building, it's almost very similar. The signage, like what's hanging on the ceiling, like all that stuff has always felt kind of similar to me, except for their icon.
Mm-hmm.
Surprisingly, which is pretty striking. The goose.
True.
And that has changed over the years. So, because it used to be like the sunset with the black, and now it's red with the white.
Mm-hmm.
Which one do you like more? This is just a question, but which one do you like more?
I don't know. I think they both suit the brand well.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're right that
I do like the original more.
I think you're right that it feels the same when you walk in there, but I also think they've made a lot of changes. They just haven't made any super crazy drastic changes. They've been introducing things like a little bit at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
to easing us into it.
Yeah, to kind of give you an idea of what it could be like, because there's still some old Wawas that are
a little funky.
Yeah, like they got the low ceilings still, and you walk in and like the lights are kind of flickering a little bit, and you're like, should I be in here? I don't know.
Those are Wawas that desperately need an upgrade.
Yeah, so when you walk in there, you can definitely feel the difference between like that Wawa and like a super Wawa, where you walk in, it's like everything's bright and kind of got that yellow warm tone to it, and you walk in and you can see everything laid out in front of you. I think that's very different from like the convenience store style of, like it was like a corner store before.
Sure. So in that group, I was also putting in 7-Eleven in my head. I feel
Sure.
like 7-Eleven.
Yes.
Now I don't frequent 7-Eleven,
Neither do
but I have seen enough of their awnings to
Mhm.
recognize the logo, the building, the way it
Sure.
looks,
Yeah.
and I feel like I can safely say that has not changed. I don't think their
I
logo
don't know.
has
I
changed
mean,
much.
no, I don't think so. I thought you meant like the stores themselves. I was gonna say I feel like they've probably done some upgrades in the same way that Wawa has, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
And then in the same vein of the way those buildings and like the marketing and stuff used to look for fast food chains like McDonald's and Wendy's and Burger King, nowadays we have Royal Farms. And I feel like Royal Farms is like the funky, fresh, hip, young like cousin of the little rest stops because it's got bright colors, it's got the giant chicken, it's going all in on the logo and the marketing, like it knows what it is and it just doesn't care.
Well, it's funny because anybody who watches this who grew up like not in the Northeast is gonna be like, what? Because Royal Farms was a thing for a long time in the South, and that
I'm
was
curious,
that was the whole story behind the Royal Farms and Wawa rivalry.
I know.
Because
pretty epic.
You know, Wawa agreed that they weren't going to go into the South because Royal Farms was like the Wawa of the South, and then Wawa kind of broke that agreement and went into Florida, and then started slowly expanding. So Royal Farms was like, well, you know what, guys, I guess we'll do it too. And then they came up here, and they've been very popular. I still don't think they have the same popularity as Wawa because Wawa is just iconic in this region, and I think people are going to go there before they go to Royal Farms.
No, I agree with you.
But I see how, from your perspective, someone who had never been introduced to the brand before would think like, oh yeah, well that's new. It's only new to us.
No, I feel like what I mean to say is like they're a little bit more like I'm looking at something right now, and the early '90s like Royal Farms, like the way it used to look, like this it looks like a barn. Like they have like a whole barn roof style thing going on here, and nowadays they have like a simple red awning to kind of pay homage to the original style, but the building itself is still very unique looking, bright colors with the blue and the green, and then at least the one by our house has the giant chicken out front. I feel like Wawa, 7-Eleven, fast food restaurants, all these other places that kind of have like a following, either from from the South or from here, like they don't have this going for them. Like they don't have like
mascot.
Well, a mascot, sure, but like the color, the unique style of the building, like there is no giant burger outside of Burger King, and not that there should be.
I think Royal Farms is pushing it harder
because they're new to the block.
Yes, because they're new. Because they already know the establishment is Wawa. They know the establishment are the fast food restaurants that people are going to go to no matter what.
So they need to be catchy.
Yeah, they need to give you a reason to go to a new place.
Yes.
Because most people are like, well, I'll get gas where I feel comfortable getting gas. Or I'll pick up my food where I want to pick out my food, where I feel comfortable, where I know what the quality is. Why would I go to a new place when I like the old place? I think they need to have something to kind of draw people in because it's something that we're not used to up here. So they need to let us know why it should be part of our lives. It's part of their marketing strategy, I think, is to convince us that we need the Royal Farms.
I think they're doing a pretty good job.
Not for you,
a pretty good job. Hey, and also, I mean, nothing against Wawa. I love Wawa. But the food is really good at Royal Farms. The chicken, it's incredible. Their mashed potatoes are killer. The biscuits are good. And they have consistently this that Wawa I don't think ever has, even in the summer. They have a pina colada slushy, which is just is wonderful.
That seals the deal for you.
Absolutely. 4-piece chicken with a biscuit and some mashed potatoes.
Peas for a second.
And
you stopped. You're like 4 peas.
4 peas. 4 peas in a slushy. Perfect snack for the summertime.
Sprinkle on top.
Boba pearls, like the little green boba pearls.
Oh man.
Disgusting.
Oh man.
So that was my tangent because you got me thinking about that. So I was just going off on a, what's it called? Gas station, stop and mark kind of, yeah. But okay, so I was Chipotle. Going back to Chipotle.
Okay.
They've been around They first opened in Denver,
Mm-hmm.
July 1993.
Okay.
Okay, and this is what they used to look like. Now this building is insane. This is
You gonna turn it toward me? Or...
yeah, absolutely. This is crazy.
Well,
This
it's still
big.
boxy.
It is still boxy, but like
It's kind of that adobo style of architecture. It totally makes sense to me.
crazy bright greens and reds and oranges and yellows and everything. Like this is, some would say, an eyesore, but I would say
I really like it.
creative and fun and
But you know
different.
what? I think that fits kind of that Western style, though. That makes sense that it would have opened there,
And then
that
this
would
is
be the
them now.
style. But I get it. But I get it. And I do think that was the upgrade that they needed. That picture you showed me was very 90s in the same way that like Taco Bell's original design was. That feels more modern to me.
Now, in the same way that McDonald's has removed their playgrounds and stuff because they're trying to deter people from bringing their kids.
Well, not
do you think that if what?
We haven't determined that as a fact.
Well, I feel like it's happening, but still.
It's conjecture.
Do you think that if Chipotle was to return to this style of architecture, that it would turn people away? Or would they still go, knowing what's inside?
I don't think it would turn people away. I think they would be like, well, why? You know? I think it would be gimmicky now to turn back and do something like that. And I think maybe they could do it for a short period of time, like as like an anniversary of their opening. You know what I mean? If they had done it this year as like 30 years of Chipotle and like kind of rebranded their stores just for a year to kind of look like that, like through a quick paint job or something, then that might be something that people could get on board with and think is fun and might even draw in more business. You're welcome, Chipotle, if you take my idea.
We're not sponsored by Chipotle.
We are not, but we could be. Wink, wink. But I think that's kind of what you like Disney World did, for example. When you think about them like putting the pink castle paint on there and celebrating for the 50th and then for 100 years of Disney, like they've been making little changes to things that are iconic to kind of get people to feel more nostalgic about it or to remember back when, because they did like a giant pink castle for the 25th.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that was what they were going for. So I could see like Chipotle doing something like that. Whether they would have sustainability in making it like that all of the time is questionable, because then you run into it being kind of an eyesore.
Well, maybe they don't.
Everything else on the block looks normal, and that's just like. Psh.
Yeah. Well, maybe they don't do like a building remodel. Maybe they just do like a merch. Like they do merch, like a rebranding.
Yeah, I could see that.
You know, they revert back to the way their cups and containers and little trays used to look
really
back then.
Cheesy to me,
if
I'm being honest. And I think that the food kind of speaks for itself. They don't really need a gimmick. I know you don't agree, and that's fine. And again, it's not my favorite type of Mexican food, but if I'm comparing it to Taco Bell, they don't really need a gimmick. Like they don't need those commercials that like sell you nacho fries with celebrities that you haven't seen in 3 years, like getting together to do little clips and fake movies.
I don't think that ever works.
But it's super gimmicky, and I think Taco Bell does that all of the time. And Burger King kind of does some gimmicky things too. McDonald's really doesn't do anything gimmicky because they know you're coming for the food. And Chipotle doesn't do anything gimmicky because they're like, well, you're coming here because you don't want to go to Taco Bell and get something out of a can.
But they do have a gimmick. And while it's not the most blatant one, it is still a gimmick. I believe it is the push that no matter what, you're coming to our restaurant, everything is fresh. Non-stop, it's fresh.
But it's true.
But we don't know that because we don't.
You can taste the difference between a frozen vegetable and a fresh vegetable.
I agree with you there, but I feel like with restaurants like Cheeto, like I can watch them making everything.
You can watch them making it at Chipotle too.
But
you've only been there once. They're always in the back. They have the whole back room is just grills, flat top grills. Okay. Can we be fair though? You didn't like it because you thought the tacos were too small, and I think that's
it's just the meat wasn't. It just wasn't.
Yeah, okay.
Another incredible part about going to these.
This is now the therapy session. Let me get my bed.
Yeah, sure. Another incredible part about going to these fast food chains was not just the food, but it was the toys, the things that you would get.
that you still get.
The Happy Meal. Well, but everywhere has a
that
Happy
you still
Meal,
buy is what I
but
mean.
they're not all Happy Meals because Burger King has its own. I don't. What are they even called? I don't think Burger King or Chick-fil-A or any of these other places have a name
Big
for
kids
it.
meals?
A Big Kids Meal?
I don't know. Is that McDonald's?
Kids Meal.
Yeah, they all have kids meals.
They just call it Kids Meal.
I feel like Burger King did have a name for it. I know they have like Whopper Juniors.
Was it like something that has to do with royalty? Was it like the Prince and Princess Meal or something like that? I don't know.
I don't think so.
Whatever. You
literally have Google in front of you, and you're like, "What is it called? I don't know."
Well, because I just don't think they have one.
Like,
but we know that
Little Tex meals.
No. All these restaurant chains have meals like this.
Sure.
But over time, I feel like the quality has gone down, and the variety. Like, you have plates from like Hercules. Didn't you get those from Burger King or
No.
McDonald's?
McDonald's. When Hercules came out, in the year you were born, they had Hercules plates. These little plastic melamine plates, and each one had a different character on it, and they were boss. Like, they were super cool. I still have the Megara one. And I used to eat all my meals on it as a kid because I absolutely loved it. They also had these little glasses that they did in the 90s for Disney World, which, do you remember those?
That's awesome.
My parents had them. Do you remember them? The ones that had like the castle on it and they were like engraved at the bottom?
Oh, yeah.
You remember those?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
Those weren't like Happy Meal toys, but they were like selling them in the restaurant.
That's pretty cool.
The same thing with like the Halloween buckets and stuff.
Now, see, this is what I mean. Your buckets, plates, cool glasses, cups, even.
They weren't all coming with Happy Meals, though. I just need to clarify that like some of those things that we're mentioning were like separate gifts and not Happy Meals. Like, you had to buy it separately.
Some of those things you did get though in the Happy Meal. You didn't get the plates?
I think the plates were a Happy Meal toy.
Okay. Well, that's interesting then, and that'll add to what I'm about to say. But
that was like merch.
I feel like they don't even do that though anymore.
I guess they were the Grimace stuff.
Sure, but I
heard something about the Halloween buckets last year. Do you remember that?
Are they bringing that back?
I thought they did last year.
That would be cool.
Didn't they?
Well, I know they did those cool toys. McDonald's did like the rebranding of like their characters with Cactus Plant Flea Market.
Okay.
It was like an artist, a streetwear brand. They all had like 4 eyes, and it was all the different characters.
Okay.
Did you not see these? They look like this. Here's Grimace.
Doesn't look familiar at all.
There's the Hamburglar.
Creepy though.
Yeah,
Sorry, no offense.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
But you could collect them all.
Okay.
And of course, every single one.
I mean, you were obsessed with those Disney 100 Happy Meal toys. You've in fact bought many of those. I'm looking at them currently.
They're incredible. They're in the office right now.
So I don't think the quality has gone down. I think they've just changed.
I feel like that is different though, because with Disney, if it's going to be associated with Disney, I feel like Disney's standards are so much higher that they're like, we need to make sure that if our name is going to be attached to these, they're not pieces of little plasticky garbage. Like, I feel, because comparatively, when we were kids, the toys that they had, the toy lines for things like, I don't know, Finding Nemo or The Incredibles, but Toy Story even, like, I wasn't around for that, but I remember Toy Story, like McDonald's and like Burger King. I think Burger King had like puppets, like that you could, like, they were like full size like puppets that you could collect. And what? Oh, you're getting more. Just the toys, like they were all functional, and like they weren't just one piece of molded plastic where you turn a little switch on the back and then like press its head in and it speaks, you know, at which the battery dies 9 times out of 10 almost immediately, you know. But that's what it is now. I feel like
Happy Meal toys have always been kind of crappy. If I'm being
I don't
honest.
think always.
I think they've always kind of been crappy. Like, they have been. but that was part of it. Like, you knew it was like a cheapy toy.
The Incredibles toys were
Now,
really,
I
really
will
good.
say, we've talked about this before, how toys, and even on the podcast, I think how toys used to be made with better quality than they are now.
Yes, we have.
I don't think that
is on our channel.
extends to the Happy Meal toys. However, I think the quality's been pretty consistent.
Well, because they're giving them away for
Because they're
essentially free.
They've always been cheap.
You're paying for the
you
meal and
know
you're
that.
getting a toy,
Yes,
so they're not going to
100%.
be of the highest quality. But
100%.
some of them were, if you weren't a monster with them, which I know we're kids, so we're probably breaking everything. But if you treated them correctly, lasted for a pretty long time. And some of them,
I ever broke a toy.
well, I mean, I'm just saying, like over time,
Yeah.
if you're still good to them,
Very
then
gentle.
they'll last for, except for the ones with batteries, because as much as I
They
loved
leak.
them, yeah. I loved all the Finding Nemo ones, but those batteries did die over time, and I just couldn't do anything to stop it.
I think I had a Nemo.
Mm-hmm.
I still have it somewhere.
The fin, you press the fin in and they
Yeah.
talk.
Yeah.
Some of them lit up. Some
Yeah.
of them would squirt
I
water.
think I had like the jellyfish too.
I know you have Bruce.
Do I?
Mm-hmm. I've seen Bruce.
I've
You have
got it-
Squirt,
okay.
who squirts water. It's adorable.
I have a lot of Happy Meal toys. I
Yeah.
consumed Happy Meals for many years.
The
before I
Cars
stopped eating meat.
line was awesome. The
Mhm.
Cars line was so good because each one was really well designed, really well made, and they all did something different based off the character's personality.
Sure.
Lightning, you pulled him back, he goes real fast. You know, Ramon had this ability where you twist something underneath him and he kind of like grooves and dances. Fillmore didn't do anything, but you know, whatever. Mater was one of the coolest ones because his
Ooh.
wheels shook when he drove,
Mhm.
and every other car in the lineup had a little notch underneath them, and Mater could connect his little tow line to the notch and drag all the cars around. You could tow everybody around Radiator Springs, and it was pretty cool. It was just really, really neat. So I just really loved it. So like that's kind of like what I mean.
Yeah.
And I know that they still kind of have stuff like that today. It's just, you know, like the Mario Kart line where you could get stickers and like customize the carts and stuff like that. Like it's cute.
Are you talking to me or your friends?
I'm talking to everyone out there who is still listening. That's just like,
That was like a good sound. I didn't even go. That wasn't. I was just touching it.
I think because you cupped your hand and it like kind of echoed.
That was fun.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's okay. So that's just kind of what I mean. I feel like that has changed since we were kids,
Yes.
and I think it's more in favor of like flash over function, and by flash I mean it makes a noise or it shoots something, some kind of projectile or something like that, rather than a lasting functional like toy, because those things that make noise or shoot, the springs could break, the speakers could bust, or the batteries are shot, you know, over time. But something that's just a toy like Mr. Incredible or Mrs. Incredible, those were great toys. And those last forever because the gimmick is just that they're a toy, you know. So it's very, very nice.
We all know how much you love Mrs. Incredible.
Well, I mean, she had the elastic arms and the stretchy midsection, and it was basically like an action figure. And then Mr. Incredible had the thing on the back. Had the thing on the back where you could put your thumb in and shake it back and forth, and he had like a punching motion. It was great. I loved them. So that's another aspect that I think has changed. But moving away from that, you were asking me what the Burger King Happy Meal is called. It's a King Jr. meal.
King Jr. That
Yes.
makes sense.
And it is really, really cute. But yeah, so just like, I feel like in general, from the exterior to the interior, these fast food chains have changed over time, and some for the good, some for the worse. And I feel like I'm waiting for the next turning point and what that looks like.
Yeah.
Is it going to be the type of situation where the old style cycles around and is popular again? Is it going to be something completely brand new? Are we going to have challengers like Royal Farms come in and threaten, you know, to take over the top spot, making all the other fast food chains or gas stations kind of like up their game? I don't know, and I'm just very much looking forward to what comes next. But this has been a lot of fun. Are you
It's been super fun. They have a little crown. They give you a little crown. I want a crown. Can we go?
Angelina wants a crown. We're going to McDonald's. We're going to Burger King. Let's go to Burger King. Thank you for joining us on our first episode of Do You Remember, where we ask the questions that bring up happy memories.
That you may not have even wanted the answers to, but we're gonna give them to you. So you listen.
We're always gonna give
You
them.
listen good.
Yep.